Well, many millionaires saw huge profits throughout the pandemic, but you may not expect that Dr. Anthony Fauci would be slipping into their ranks. A new report from our guest breaks down all the income Dr. Fauci saw in the first year of the pandemic. So let's welcome him in, the founder and CEO of OpenTheBooks.com and Forbes contributor, Adam Andrzejewski. Good morning, Adam. So great to have you back.
Good morning, Alex.
All right, so in your newly released article in Forbes, it's entitled, Dr. Fauci's household made $1.7 million in 2020. You also mentioned that his household net worth is $10.4 million. All right, so the obvious question, is this level of income normal for someone in Fauci's position? I mean, obviously some people are speculating that he profited off of the pandemic.
Well, who knew? Who knew that a government bureaucrat could do so well in this world? So look, Dr. Fauci had a really good year in 2020. Obviously, his investment mix, his level of income, his travel perks, his royalties, all of this information was not known ahead of Friday. If you just recall, at the end of last week at 5 o'clock Eastern time on the East Coast, the U.S. Senator Roger Marshall, on Thursday, he had given National Institutes of Health and Dr. Fauci a demand letter for unredacted, non-blanked out versions of his financial disclosures. Those came through, and I immediately gave them oversight in my column at Forbes.
Now, you broke down where this 1.7 million came from in your article. Like you just mentioned, travel perks over $100,000. Now, one of the biggest things that jumps out immediately is his investment income. Now, aren't we supposed to be cracking down on politicians' investments? I mean, why hasn't Fauci's almost $100,000 being scrutinized at this point?
So just to be clear on the travel perks, the $100,000 was royalties. So Dr. Anthony Fauci sits on the board of McGraw Publishing, and being on the editorial board, editing a medical journal, he makes at least $100,000. And the disclosure here is very wide. He could make up to $1 million in that position. We just use the lower bound figure of $100,000. In the investment mix, he has $10.4 million in his investment accounts between him and his wife. And those accounts went up during 2020 by $800,000. Now in 2021, we still don't have those disclosures. We won't have them for at least 5 months. He doesn't even have to file them to the federal deadline of May 16th. The stock market had an unbelievable year in 2021. And so that income, those profits should be a lot higher.
Well, let's talk about his household net worth, which you just mentioned, over $10 million. Does this lead you to believe that 2020's finances are not just a one-time windfall?
No, I mean, he's got a tremendous amount of invested assets. So the stock market had an unbelievable year in 2021. And he has his disclosures show that in his investment accounts, he has up to 80% invested in stocks. So he would have had a good year. I do want to point out that there's been a lot of speculation that he profited off of individual stocks or bonds during the pandemic. And his disclosures lock him into a position. He did not own a single individual issue during the pandemic. And I think that's important information.
All right, I kind of want to go back to something that you just said again. The NIH released heavily redacted financial disclosures of Dr. Fauci. His 2021 finance report is supposed to come out in May, like you just mentioned. What do we expect?
So, we expect full transparency. When our organization at OpenTheBooks.com had filed this request for his 2019 and 2020 disclosures, we had to file a federal lawsuit over the 2020 disclosures, and they gave us the 2019 disclosures after a 5-month battle to get those, and they were heavily redacted. It took the Honorable U.S. Senator Roger Marshall from Kansas to file that demand letter and get the unredacted versions. So on the new versions, we expect full transparency, just like what we've seen on these latest 2 financial disclosures to the U.S. Senator.
All right. Well, we shall see in May. So thank you, Adam Andrzejewski, for coming on this morning. I'll always appreciate your time.
Thank you.